This might just be the coolest package Go Industrial has ever received. So let's unbox and find out what we've got here. So this is the Graco TrueCoat 360 Connect, and it's a first of its kind. It's a true airless paint sprayer that is designed to be used with your drill or your impact driver that you might already have in your toolkit. And I'm super excited about this because it's the first of its kind to come out, which can really take you from brushing and rolling into the world of airless spray, which we love so much. To be able to spray 10 times faster than brushing and 4 times faster than rolling, get a feel for it. So in today's video, we're going to go through the TrueCoat 360 Connect, what it is, what it does, who it's for, what to expect, how to set it up. There's a few cool modes that you can set this up in depending on how you want to spray. I'm going to be showing you through spraying technique for spraying both doors, and I've got some exterior timber slats here to spray as well. And really cover the ins and outs of this machine, see if it's right for you. And of course, if you have any questions or you want to see any other content from us, drop it in the comments below. Make sure you've liked and subscribed to see more paint related content. Without further ado, let's get straight into the new TrueCoat 360 Connect. So who's this for and what is it really designed to do? It is a true airless paint sprayer, meaning that there is no air in the system. Airless sprayers are brought out to achieve two things really. Fast application of paint, minimal overspray, and it's because it runs purely on pressure as there's no air in the system. This unit is for homeowners and DIYers, and it's designed to be used for jobs up to 8 litres of paint. This is the smallest, most portable Graco sprayer of its kind, so you have to understand that there's limitations in what you can achieve with this paint sprayer. The entire Graco range is still made in the States, out of Michigan, which is a really important thing for us as a distributor in Australia because it means really, really high build quality, really, really high quality control, and when it gets in your hands and you're using it, you're having a fun experience, and that's not negative. Let's talk about the price straight away. This retails for $330, including GST in Australia. For a true airless sprayer that has a piston pump and delivers the finish quality that it does, it is fantastic value for money. And it is so cheap and so accessible because, if you can see in its design, this is only the front end of a paint sprayer. Graco is really clever with their design because a lot of people looking to renovate their homes or do projects around the house, you might already own a drill or an impact driver, and that is ideal to use with this unit. So let's get to know the unit. I'll show you shortly how to hook it up to your drill or your impact driver. We'll run through what comes in the box, and then we'll actually get some paint in the unit and get spraying. How do I decide between whether using my power drill or my impact driver? And it really depends on what job you have. For me, I'll be showing you two examples. When we're spraying doors, I want a lot of control and I'm not so fazed about the speed in which I'm spraying. I'll be using a drill because it's got a lot more consistent power delivery with minimal spikes. When I'm hitting this fence or if I'm hitting a larger surface area, I'm not really that fazed about control and I really want that speed and productivity. So I'll be using an impact driver. Impact drivers have a lot more torque than a drill, depending on what brand you have. So you know that you can deliver a lot more powerful results with this TrueCoat 360 Connect. If you have both on hand, try both and get a bit of a feel for what you prefer. Firstly, you have the stand here for your drill or your impact driver. There's a height adjustment which will suit whether you're using slimline batteries or if you're using thicker batteries for longer life. You also have your drill bit attachment. Next, you have a prime and a spray switch. This all has to do with the operating procedure, which again, we'll cover soon when we set up. But you want to prime your unit first, and then you can flick it into spray, and that'll change the direction of your paint. This is Graco's FlexLiner cup assembly, and it's made up of 3 or 4 parts. You have your lid, you have what we call a vacuum valve cap, we have what we call a FlexLiner bag, and then we have the cup holder itself. Graco's FlexLiner system allows you to spray at any angle. And the way it works is that once you fill your flexible liner up with paint, You evacuate all the air out of your vacuum valve, you close the cap, and that will allow you to change the direction of what you're spraying. You won't lose any pressure in the spray, and you won't have to constantly reprime to get that pressure moving through. The flex liner bags are reusable. As long as you keep them clean, they can last for a very long time. You also have the flex liner lid, which you want to make sure that you keep out of the direct sun. You keep this seal in here lubricated, which we'll show you later when we set up. The other part of our TrueCoat 360 Connect you really need to be mindful of is what we call the pump inlet strainer. This strainer here is really important to get any paint skins, any debris out of your paint spraying system. Because when we're spraying paint, we're turning a liquid into a really fine mist. If you have old paint lying around the shed, or if it's not mixed or stirred thoroughly, one paint skin that gets sucked up can very easily block your spray tip. So make sure that you've got your inlet strainer in when you get started. Make sure this stays nice and clean, and you can keep some spares on hand if you're really concerned. This blue strainer that comes with the TrueCoat 360 Connect is a 60 mesh strainer, which is going to be fantastic for your interior acrylic paints, your exterior acrylic paints, and the list goes on. You can just simply push this inlet strainer in here, make sure it's there before we connect our flex liner cup system, and away we go. Getting to where all the magic happens is actually in the spray tip. So we have a piston pump in here which generates up to 2000 PSI of pressure in this TrueCoat 360 Connect. I'll warn you now, skin injection injury is super important to be mindful of, but make sure that you never have your hands in front of the sprayer when you're connected to your drill or your impact driver. You always want to make sure that there's no pressure in the system when we're playing around with the spray tip and the tip guard. Pretty cool. You get 2 spray tips included when you buy the TrueCoat 360 Connect. Graco's color-coded them to make life a little bit easier. So you have a paint-wide tip and you have a stain-wide tip. Now, when we're talking about how wide this is, we're looking at a 10-inch fan and we're looking at an orifice size, or the hole size of the paint sprayer, which lets your paint out to be suitable for all of your standard interior, exterior acrylic paints, and again, for your stains, lacquers, and varnishes. This sprayer is only suitable for water-based paint. If you're looking to spray oil-based, flammable, or solvent-based paints, the TrueCoat 360 isn't for you. You cannot spray it through this Graco TrueCoat 360 Connect. What happens if I do spray oil-based or solvent-based paint through this unit? Number 1, you void your warranty, which is never any fun if you decide to break it. Number 2, there is a spark risk from your impact driver or your drill, and that can potentially catch on fire if you're spraying a solvent-based or a flammable paint. To be safe, just do not do it at all. Narrowing it down to 2 makes your job a lot easier. All you need to do is you need to worry about the speed in which you set your drill or your impact driver, and whether you are spraying a stain, which is thin, not very thick, or a paint, which is a lot thicker. Introducing to you our funnel and our strainer system. This is a really neat 2-piece system which you can easily put into your flex liner cup assembly to strain your paint prior to getting it in the gun. If you want to avoid having any blockages in your tip or any trouble throughout your project, the best way to avoid this is to strain your paint. The last 2 things this kit comes with. These are some spares for your flex liner cup system. And this little vacuum valve cap, because you are always opening and closing it as you're priming the unit, that little hinge can wear out over time. It is made out of plastic and it will wear pretty quickly if you let it crack in the sun. So where possible, please store this out of direct sunlight in a nice, cool, shady environment. That too, you get a spare vacuum valve cap. Last but not least, this is Graco's Seal Lube. Because the TrueCoat 360 operates off a sealed system, being an airless sprayer, any air that leaks into your system will cause issues when you're spraying. It'll introduce little air pockets in when you're spraying your paint. It's an absolute pain. It'll clog your tips and you'll have to be constantly repriming the unit. So how do you avoid this and make sure it doesn't happen? When you unscrew your lid from the flex liner assembly, make sure that you apply the seal lube around the outside of the lid. The other section that you can use the seal lube is around this O-ring here, where you're constantly taking the lid in and out of that pump inlet. So I'm going to show you how to assemble the TrueCoat 360 Connect from scratch. First and foremost, you want to make sure that this switch here is downwards in the prime position. You can see here we've got the pump inlet. This is where your fluid will actually be primed through. We want to make sure that your inlet strainer is always attached to the pump. Secondly, let's set up our orientation for spray. We have 2 options. It's really exciting for me. First, we can set it up in your standard orientation like this. The cup will be hanging underneath. It'll be pressurized and it'll be a nice even weight distribution between where the battery sits and where the cup sits full of paint. The other option that we have, and it's really cool from Graco, is that we can actually sit the unit like this and have the cup on top gravity feeding. I'm going to show you how to set up in both orientations. So let's firstly go for the standard orientation. So first you have your Velcro strap on the base. We want to pull that back and we want to give it a little bit more slack to be able to actually slide our battery and our unit in there. We then want to tighten the Velcro strap to make sure that's nice and secure, put a bit of pressure on it and then loop back and attach the Velcro to the impact driver. So now that we've got our impact driver secured, we've got our drill bit attachment here, which connects it into the pump. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that sweet spot. You can see this gray section here actually lets you flex it into whatever drill or impact driver you have. So I'm going to lift it to a height and just see where that sweet spot is. You can see there that it's now nice and connected in, and I'm fully assembled. The next step is we want to get this flex liner cup attached to the assembly. So where our prime and our spray switch is, we want to make sure that this black vacuum valve cap is aligned with our prime or spray switch, which is right here. And then you twist to secure the cup. This will be a slightly different setup when we're actually filling up with paint. I want to make sure that I'm going to be pouring paint into the funnel before we actually get that into the paint sprayer. And that's as easy as that. Now let's change this from our standard orientation to gravity fed. Super simple. Again, release the Velcro strap. We'll take the unit out. We'll release the drill chuck. Now we'll do a bit of a flip. So we always want to make sure that that inlet strainer is on top for gravity fed. I'll put the drill here, thread the Velcro through. We'll make sure that's nice and tight against the impact driver base to keep it secure. And then all we need to do is you just need to lift this up and line it up with that attachment again. You can see that's now our alternative orientation. We can set it up. You can buy a separate mini cup for this gravity fed option if you're doing touch-ups. I think it takes up to about 150 milliliters of paint, but if you want to attach your flex liner system, first you want to make sure that you turn it upside down, otherwise it's going to be an absolute mess. You want to line up that vacuum valve black cap with the main spray prime switch, and then we want to secure that by twisting the cup. You will always feel a click when that goes into place. Now we know that's ready. If that was full of paint, I can then flick it this way, and that is my gravity fed option. Let's get this filled up full of paint. Let's actually paint some doors and get this job done. So today we are using our trusty tint trim paint in a very cool color called Drop Bear, which is like a dark gray. So without further ado, let's get this unit disconnected from the assembly because we are going to fill up our flex liner system with some paint. So I'm going to zoom you in. We're going to get some nice paint mixed and poured into this, and I'm going to show you how that works. A couple of my favorite tools. We have the iQuet 2-edge knife, which is super handy. Get that opened up. And we also have our Monarch 4-liter paint stirrer. So right now we're making sure that our paint is stirred really thoroughly, and you can just see that that paint just flows so nicely already, and it's going to look absolutely fantastic. Making your cleanup easy is always a smart thing to do. Now we're finished with the funnel, just submerge it in water and get that just resting in there. Clean up our stirring stick, pop that in the water with our funnel. So to get it all loaded up and primed, we want to make sure first that our unit is in the prime position, which means that we'll have no paint built up in the sprayer itself under pressure. We also want to make sure that the inlet strainer here is actually installed in the unit to pick up any other paint particles that might not have been strained out into the cup. Now, let's get this unit primed up. Firstly, you want to open your vacuum valve cap because that's going to eliminate all the air we squeeze out of the flex liner cup. We want to then squeeze the cup, and you can hear all the air eliminating here. You want to keep squeezing the liner to get all that air out of the flex liner until we can see that paint rising to the top. Just bubble up there, and I know that's all out. Now that all the air has been eliminated from the flex liner, we want to make sure that the vacuum valve cap is closed, the unit's in prime, and we're going to prime this now for 10 seconds. So you want to set your speed to a mid setting. Now that we've primed the unit for 10 seconds, the next thing we're going to do is flick it into the spray position. We're going to reverse the tip and get a little bit of paint flowing through. So to reverse the tip, firstly, we're going to twist it around the other way. We're then going to flick from prime into the spray position, and we're going to spray it into the bucket. Perfect. I've got paint flowing. Let's get painting. All right, a quick moment for PPE. Whenever you're spraying, even though it's an airless spray and there is minimal overspray, make sure that you always have either a dust mask or a respirator on hand. Be mindful of other people around you. If they don't have the right PPE, make sure they have that before you get started. The next thing is safety glasses. Make sure you got some on hand. You can get some tinted or clear. That's just to protect your eyes from any potential paint spraying. So now I've got this all dialed in. We're primed up. We've got the tip in place. We're in the spray position. let's show you actually how to spray and what type of technique is involved. When you're in between tasks, you can always twist the spray tip sideways so that way that the orifice isn't actually exposed to the air. The only thing that's going to dry your water-based paint is actually going to be exposure to the elements or air. As long as it's not open to that air, you're going to be all sweet. Now, the awesome part of this machine, and I've twisted it sideways here, so this isn't an issue, is you can either spray horizontally or you can spray vertically. You want to keep your wrist locked and parallel to the surface. You want to be roughly around 30 centimeters away from the surface, and you want to overlap 50% each time. But let's just spray this out and see how it goes. So you always want to make sure that you trigger on before you hit the substrate and release the trigger once you come off the substrate. That's how it's done. 50% overlap each time, roughly about 30 centimeters or 6 feet away from the surface. And don't be too worried about full coverage on your first coat. Usually we'll do 2 top coats, which means that if you missed something or if it's not fully covered, you have a second chance to come back and get it. So I'm going to be spraying this door now. And as I said earlier, it's a lot easier to spray a door when it's flat than when it's up vertically against a wall. So the difference here is we're going to make sure that we're not putting our hands in front of the spray tip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this tip guard sideways. This is now going to be spraying left to right or horizontally. I don't have to do anything else since I've just sprayed. If it had been maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I'd put the sprayer back into the prime position and I'd go again. So let me put my mask on and let's do this thing. You can see that I've missed this little section, or it's still a bit of a white mist from that undercoat that we'd sprayed before. Leave that to the second coat, because if we loaded this up too much, potentially it could run, especially if the door was standing upright. I didn't fully fill this cup, so after a couple of doors, I'm ready to show you how to refill. It's pretty straightforward. First, we're going to change our tip to be sideways so those holes aren't exposed to the air. The next thing I'm going to do is the pressure relief procedure, which is super important. What you want to do is you want to turn the spray switch into the prime position, and that's going to firstly relieve the pressure. We'll just make sure that our tip is forward, and what I'll do is I'll just test just to make sure that there's actually no paint coming out that spray tip. Now we're safe to make some changes. I'm going to put that back to sideways. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the vacuum valve cup up. I'm going to take that cup off. We've got a bit of paint coming out here of the actual inlet, so just make sure you got a rag or something there to rest the actual gun on. We want to get that strainer from earlier, and we want to put that back into our cup assembly and fill up as we did before. The fuller that you fill these flex liner cups up, the less we have to evacuate that air out of the flex liner cup. But the rule of thumb is when you come up here and you see this section, you don't want the actual strainer to be submerged more than the crossbar. So you can see you don't want it to be any fuller than inside of that cup there. So that's a good level. I'm pretty happy with that. Now for my favorite part of this whole process, how do I properly clean my paint sprayer? So first thing we always want to do when we're taking stuff apart is to make sure the pressure is relieved. So again, down into the prime position, we want to make sure that the tip is facing forward to test spray to make sure that there's nothing that's going to hurt us. We want to twist our tip sideways so we're not exposing it to the air. We want to recover the paint that we've sprayed that we can put back in our paint drum. So let's do that first. Always allow yourself enough time to clean up. If you leave it too late in the day, it's something that you're inherently just going to skip. So we're going to take this cup off, and I'm also going to unscrew the lid of the flex liner cup. It's got a little bit of paint on the inside as well. We're going to recover what paint we've got left. So we'll get that paint out. Always make sure that you're disposing of paint in the correct way. But for this rule of thumb, we have our own service and warranty center here at Go Industrial. So we do all the right things. We actually have a paint solids separator bin, which is pretty cool. So that's how we like to be nice and eco-friendly. So what I'll do is I'll get some more wipes and I'll wipe this out. And I'll also go run some water through the tap, get that in the liner, clean it. Another thing you can do to speed up the process of cleaning the liners a lot faster is you can pull your paint-filled liner out of that color, and we can put that to the side for a second. We can get a new liner, and today I can use this as our wash-up liner. Now, you notice I have a few buckets. I have a crystal clear water bucket. I have another bucket there, which is going to be our sacrificial first flush bucket. And then I have our waste bucket, which has just got nothing but a little bit of paint in there. we want to flush the unit through. What we're going to do is we're going to put our paint away, got most of that out, what we can. I'm going to put that down here to the side, and we're going to fill this liner here full of some clean water. Next thing we're going to do, because the inside of this lid is full of paint, I'm going to get one of our ultra grime wipes, and I'm going to wipe that out, get rid of any of that paint that's especially around that white seal on the inside. You can see that there. As paint dries, it can cause that seal to become a bit problematic, which is the main seal that actually pressurizes the cup, and we can rinse it in my sacrificial bucket of water. I'm just going to submerge it here and give it a good clean. Okay, so let's screw our lid on here where we've got our nice clean flex liner full of water. I'm going to reconnect our unit, and we're going to get all the air out of this liner that's full of water. Another easy way to do this without having to get the air out all the time is to turn it upside down. Same thing, it's just going to circulate. We want to prime it first, and you'll straight away see all of that turn to paint. Prime that through. Then what we're going to do is we're going to turn our spray tip into the spray position, and then we're going to flush it into this bucket. You want to make sure you're always flushing your tips out if you're using them in paint. What I'm going to do there is I'm just going to pull this out as well. You can see here we've got our inlet strainer. We want to make sure that that inlet strainer is also nice and clean. Clean water bucket, give that a good clean. What I'll do is, because our water is now really murky, I'm going to transfer this water into here. So you rinse and repeat, you prime it through with clean water, you clean out your flex liners, whatever else has touched paint. You make sure that when you're cleaning around the tip guard and the guard that it's in the prime position, and you keep doing until you run with clear water. Again, it does take a little bit of time. That's why you want to set up for some jobs. I would also take out my spray tip, even though you flush it with water, give it a good wipe over and a really good clean. Doing this with a rag now, and same story with your tip guard. You want to try and get off as much of that paint as possible. Question we get all the time, how do I store my sprayer, or how deeply do I clean it? And it really depends on the next time you're going to be spraying and how much you've been spraying and how long you want this thing to last. Because I'm only storing it overnight, I've cleaned it to a point where it's running clear with water, tick, that's what I want, but I've got to make sure, and at any point in time, never store the unit with water. Water is corrosive for all those wetted materials inside the pump. It will rust out and it will cause you issues. And we use a product called Graco Pump Armor. It's a really good anti-corrosive, anti-freeze solution that you keep in the sprayer for as long as you need. You can dilute it with water like car wash. And I always recommend to increase the strength and dilution depending on how long you're storing it for. Because I'm only storing it overnight. I'll show you now, I don't need to use a lot of pump armor. A 1 litre bottle will get you quite far. We only need to add a small car wash amount, you can see in there, and then we can top it up with some clean water. And it only needs to be just enough so when we turn it upside down, the pump inlet and strainer is submerged and we can cycle and prime that through. We don't need to push it through the spray tip. We don't need to put that into the spray position. It only needs to be in the prime position. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip this upside down so I can show you. In the prime position, when you're priming it with pump armor, you can actually see that fluid bubbling inside of the cup, and that's exactly what you want. I've already flushed my spray tips with water, and I've already cleaned them out. We can leave those out to dry. They won't corrode. You can also store spray tips in pump armor, and sometimes we'll do that. Now, if you want to make any final touches, if you want to get a soft bristle brush, get a bit of that overspray off the tip guard. That'll stop things from building up over summer, especially if you're spraying sticky exterior acrylics. I really do recommend cleaning around this tip guard area because it can cause spitting with your spray tips. So let's pack up. We're going to get back into this tomorrow. We'll get into some deep cleaning stuff and some preventative maintenance. Okay, let's pick up where we left off. We've already sprayed with the impact driver. We painted the doors. It sprays beautifully. Now I'm going to show you how to switch over to the drill. We're going to get hooked up. Again, the drill is for slower, finer finishing, which is going to be fantastic for our doors. Let's see how it goes. I'll put in the battery first. I'm going to stand it on this little stand here. And I'm going to lift this chuck up to the drill bit, slot that in, and we're just going to tighten that up now. Half a turn back to lock it in. I'll secure the unit to the base. Thanks so much for watching the video. We hope you got something out of it. You can pick up the Graco TrueCoat 360 Connect today from Go Industrial on our online store. All the links are below. So yeah, like, subscribe, keep in touch, and I'll see you in the next one.